Welcome to MSP Voice, the weekly show for MSPs by MSPs. Brought to you by Cloudberry, the #1 cross-platform cloud backup. Learn more at cloudberrylab.com. This is MSP Voice. Hello and welcome to MSP Voice. This is episode number 19. We have a very special episode for you today. We're going to take a bit of a security focus. My interview is with Bart Barcewicz from B-Suite Cybersecurity out of Chicago. Bart and I have a great conversation about security, everything you need to be made aware of. And of course, as soon as we recorded the interview last week, we started getting all these information about new threats and those types of things. So I want to cover some of those in the beginning here. So I'll point to some articles and some information that you should all know about, and then we'll jump into the interview. So let's get started. First up is the Msp Alert. Hopefully all of you saw this last week, but if you didn't, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is now warning about managed service providers like yourselves and cloud service providers that the cyber gangsters are exploiting them. So it's a definite, very credible threat. It's an advanced persistent threat activity exploiting managed service providers. So there's a DHS warning that's out there. And what they've essentially identified, what the attackers have identified, is that MSSPs, MSPs, and even CSPs as the weak link in the supply chain to get to their customers. So the DHS is strongly advising service providers to lock down their systems and their data. I have included a link to the DHS warning and the information here from US CERT that provides all the information, all the different warnings and those types of things. So, advanced persistent threat, it's definitely something credible. It's something that you need to take a look at to make sure that your customers are protected, but also make sure you're protected, because you do have a lot of customer data that you store across your different systems. You need to make sure that you're just as secure as your customers. So, definitely don't think that just because your customers are secure, you're good, because you've got to make sure that your house is locked down as well. So definitely check this out, read into it, and if you have any questions, get out there and contact someone, start a discussion on it. The next one is another thing that came up last week, and many of you may have seen this article in Bloomberg. I saw it and I was like, wow, this is like really insane. It's called The Big Hack: How China Used a Tiny Chip to Infiltrate US Companies. So basically what this is talking about is a company, Supermicro. They make computers and a lot of them motherboards for computer equipment out there. And what this article alleges is that Amazon found an issue as part of a due diligence for a company that they were acquiring. And they sent some of this company's equipment off to their security folks for a third-party audit. And they found this little tiny chip, it's about the size of a grain of rice, that essentially had backdoors to allow the Chinese government to come in and pull the information and those types of things. So this is like a really scary story because Supermicro, their motherboards, everything is out there. This article says that it was not just Amazon, but also Apple and banks and large institutions and all these types of things. So it was really scary. Supermicro's stock took a huge hit after the story was released. Now, in the article, Amazon themselves kind of deny that this even happened. So it was kind of like that was the big story. Everyone was talking about it. And since then, especially over the weekend, we've had some updates. First from Amazon. So Amazon calls it Bloomberg Businessweek's erroneous article. So Amazon is saying this never happened. We've never found anything like this. Everything is secure. Don't believe what was said in the article. They don't know where they got the information. So that's kind of one denial from Amazon themselves. Now, of course, Apple has come out with a very similar statement saying they don't, Apple's never heard of this. They don't know what's going on. Now, also over the weekend is US intelligence as well as UK intelligence agencies basically came out and said, we believe what the vendors are saying, that they had no knowledge of this because we don't know essentially what they're talking about. So the intelligence officials, they're not saying Bloomberg was wrong. They just believe what the businesses are saying, that Bloomberg was wrong. So, they're not coming quite out and 100% denying that this happened, but they are saying, hey, we believe Amazon and Apple that this didn't happen. So the register kind of goes into, talk about, the different responses here in this article, what the UK government said, what, the UK National Cybersecurity Center, and then as well as what the US response was. So there's been a lot of kind of, there's this big article out there that talks about this hacking, and now you've got all these companies and even intelligence agencies essentially denying it. So, I don't know what the truth is. It's kind of one of those that I think it's going to be interesting to follow over the next several weeks. But if it is true, then oh no. If it's not true, then someone at Bloomberg Business Week is probably going to get fired. Probably more than one person. So anyway, it's an interesting story to kind of keep track on. Also in the security area, if you use ConnectWise, just popped up again last week, is ConnectWise has invested in Perch Security. They offer self-service threat intelligence tools for the MSP and technology solution providers. So this is not this is not ConnectWise purchasing Perch. This is ConnectWise investing in Perch. So ConnectWise, as a company, they invest in other areas. So channel E2E kind of has a story in terms of what it means and all those types of things. They also look at, the fact that there's a big battle going on out there. You've got private equity-backed companies like Continuum, Kaseya, SolarWinds, Datto, that they're battling with. So it's kind of like, there's a lot going on in the MSP space, especially in the software that you use every day. There's different consolidation going on and those types of things. So I'm sure that ConnectWise will have more information about how they're planning to maybe have some additional integration with Perch, probably at IT Nation, their show coming up here in November. And then finally, I could not believe this when I saw this, but it does appear to be true because I've seen it from enough sources now, is that the 10 Windows, this is Microsoft Windows, the 1809 upgrade misplaced deleted files in C users public and C users user. Basically, Windows update deleting user files. Not a good thing to happen. So I've seen multiple reports of this. You've probably seen some blog posts and some articles about this as well. Definitely not a good thing. In terms of exactly what's happening in the background, I'm not 100% positive. But people are saying that things are getting moved around and things are getting screwed up with this update. So what does that mean? Backup. So there's a Reddit article here that kind of talks about it, and then it has over 170 comments. Most of them are like, as long as you have a good backup, then you can restore those files and everything should be fine. So it's always about the importance of backup, especially with Windows Update. Now it boggles my mind that Microsoft would release something like this that would do this. That it got out of testing and all those types of things. But apparently it did. There's some conditions that where this is happening to people, but it definitely underscores the need for backup. And when you're talking security, backup is extremely important as well, especially if you get hit with crypto virus, things like that, to be able to restore. So backups are always key. So with that being said, that's just a quick roundup of some security related items that we have for this week. And now let's take you to the interview with Bart and talk a little bit more about security. Hello and welcome to MSP Voice. Today I am honored to be joined by Bart Barcewicz from Chicago. He's got a great practice. He owns bsuite.io on the internet, his business there, and he focuses a lot on security. So we're going to have a great conversation today about security. So Bart, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi guys, great to be here. Doug, thanks for the invite. So just a little bit about me. We're a managed security service provider out of Chicago. It's between consulting and managed security services as well. We work with business owners to try to help them take the first steps or further steps in keeping their data secure and hackers out. That's what we live by. And the big thing here is, for sometimes, and I'm sure everyone out there has the same issue as well at times, is getting the small business owners or the mid-sized business owners to actually understand security, maybe trying to throw in some parables or different comparisons. Like I always try to compare data security to the security of the house, and then try to
Mhm.
get them to understand that there's a system that has to be in place of protection, detection, and response. And in order for that to work together, all three items have to be there so they can be secure. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. We mainly work with financial companies. Uh, do also some work in the DoD space for the government contractors with the new
Okay.
compliance that they had. So we work with that as well.
Mhm.
And then also the dreadful HIPAA clients, but those are those are a lot of times a lot harder to convince because doctors don't really care about HIPAA, and I'm sure every single person out there heard about that and heard from the
Yeah.
doctor like that. But just getting them and taking it one step at a time and making them more aware and just educating them and educating them. Sometimes it takes a very long time.
Mhm.
Sometimes they catch on to it a little quicker, but that's what we're out there for, to
Yeah,
do
I know
that.
there was a Reddit post last week from an MSP who he had to present to the CEO on why passwords were important in individual user accounts because this company had everyone set up with the same account. There was one account for the entire company. They all used the same, obviously the same password. The files were all shared to that one account, no others. And he had to kind of figure out how to convince the CEO that it was really important for users to have individual accounts instead of just one shared amongst the entire company. So security, sometimes people just do not get it.
That definitely do. Add to that, if that password is on the dark web, the whole business is out.
Yeah, exactly. So
Everybody's out there. Everybody's compromised. So, I mean, if I don't know if it was out there or not, but that would be the thing that I would actually drive forward is try to see if they're on the dark web, and if they are, that should be a fairly easy conversation to get them to understand.
that's good. That's a good point. So kind of you told us a little bit about what you do. How did you get into business? Did you have a career in IT first? Did you work for the man, so to speak, before you started working for yourself, or how did that work? How did that work out?
Yeah, pretty much. I worked for a bigger MSP in Chicago, and just over the years, I've learned things and I've done things. I grew up in infrastructure, moved on to security, worked a lot
Okay.
with HIPAA compliance, and I just decided that the time sometimes comes where you want to build your own dream. So
Hmm.
that's what I decided to do. I took the leap of faith, and here I am.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's great. And I know, a lot of the, IT MSP owners, that I talk to, it's kind of a similar thing. They decided, you know what, hey, I want to try to do this on my own. And then, there's obvious kind of transition from working for someone to working for yourself and, having to manage finance and sales and marketing and all these different types of things. So, it can definitely be a challenge, but it can be also a fun adventure.
Yeah, the sales and marketing is definitely something that has been the hardest piece to do,
Hmm.
but having the right coaching, being part of the right groups, reading the right books, it just puts you in the mindset where you start thinking that first. You start thinking sales and marketing first, and then
Yep.
from there, everything else starts falling into place. But the main thing that I've learned, and I've struggled with that in the beginning, was executing sales and marketing. But now every day, there's not a day that I don't execute. That's just what you have to do.
That's great. So, and one of the reasons we got connected was through, there's a Facebook group, Chris Weiser's Facebook group, and you had offered kind of a somewhat of an assessment for MSPs from a security perspective. Now, is that something that you offer to MSPs in general? Is kind of a take a look at their security?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I do. I work with a number of MSPs on their internal security needs and also other security needs for their clients. I
Hmm.
help them. There's different things that we do. I mean, definitely starts out with evaluating what their security services stack is, how their security is internally, what they may be doing or may not be doing. Right, and maybe giving them some suggestions on how to move those things forward, and also creating a small roadmap for them so there's services
Okay.
that they can add right away to just help generate maybe some more revenue at times, or make the clients a lot more sticky because they have a lot more exposure with them. But
Okay.
then there are other services, the more advanced security services that they also can bring into their clients. So someone like AT&T poaching clients about Alien Vault right now is not just gonna go out there and start poaching their clients, and then the
Yeah.
client will be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. But if they hear about that from their MSP, and if they use Alien Vault, if they use any other technologies out there, that's something that the client doesn't just think, oh, they're not doing it right. They're not
Yeah.
doing it right, but they are doing it if they're educating their clients, if they're talking to them about it, and if they're staying in front of them and making them aware
Mhm.
of what's out there and how they can better protect their business and their digital assets.
Yeah, and you mentioned AT&T and T and AlienVault. That came up from a discussion in that same Facebook group this morning, where apparently AT&T is now
Yeah.
contacting the MSP customers directly. AlienVault was an independent company. AT&T bought them a couple of months ago, and now AT&T is going out and trying to get those customers directly and cutting out the MSP, which is bad business practice, if you ask me.
It's definitely yeah, it's definitely a bad business practice. I mean, I've reached out to AlienVault before. I talked to them. They
Mhm.
did reach out to clients directly as well, but they also had a very strong partner program where they could recommend partners and work with partners at a really good level. But
Okay.
AT&T kind of just throws a wedge into that.
Yeah.
And what I actually see happening from that, and a lot of MSPs and a lot of IT companies just getting upset with that and not working with AlienVault, maybe even
Yeah.
canceling their partnerships
Yeah.
and going with a different vendor that's not going to go out there and actually poach.
Mhm. Yeah. So from a security perspective too, I know one of the things we talked about was, obviously, as an MSP, you need to provide security for your customers, for your clients. But what about your own security? As an MSP, you're handling all of this customer data. You might have passwords and those types of things where you're storing those. How do you make sure that the MSP themselves are secure?
Yeah, and it's the same thing that goes for any business. So I talk to business owners, I talk to MSPs.
Hmm.
The number one thing you need to do, you need to know your risk. You need to know what your vulnerabilities are. You need to know what your gaps are, and you should review that on an annual basis. I mean, that's something that's recommended by most compliancies,
Hmm.
all the security gurus. I mean, I always talk about that. You have to have an annual security risk assessment. You need to know what's going on because things change.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, we're in IT. What was brand new yesterday? It's old news today. There's
Yeah.
something new there's something else that's coming out, and a lot of times those technologies are evolving, and there are different things that we just need to watch out for. The one big thing that I talk to MSPs and some of the ones that I talk to is everyone has an RMM tool. If it's ConnectWise or if it's SolarWinds or any other tool that they have, there is a number of MSPs out there that don't have multi-factor authentication for that. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the number one thing. Some of them will store passwords, but think about it. Those are the keys to the kingdom. That has
Yeah.
access to every single system your clients have. So you do
Hmm.
want to make sure that you add an extra layer of protection and you really monitor that. So the things that are very sensitive in value and basically are the bread and butter of your business, you need to protect them with whatever you can and whatever you can do and just layering that security just so you can protect the attackers. Because there's there are companies out there like the APT10 group.
Hmm.
What their main thing is going after MSPs. They go after MSPs. They try to hack MSPs. Because
Okay.
why are they gonna go and try to hack a small business? If they get into small business, okay, they got one business. They go after an MSP. That MSP can have 10, 20,
Yeah.
100, 200 clients. If they can get in
Yeah.
there, that's a jackpot for them.
Yeah. So that was APT 10.
I believe it's APT10. Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
actually something that our friends from Infogressive talked about as well. So
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
just to bring that,
I just wanted to maybe include that in the show notes in case people were wondering about that. I'll do
yeah,
some research afterwards. So,
yeah.
um,
Yes, there
and,
there are definitely there are a lot of groups out there that try to go after MSPs. They
okay.
they they try to go after the pot of gold. I mean, they're not
Yeah.
gonna go after one, two companies. It's the same thing like the Target breach.
Hmm.
Okay, it was a small HVAC company that got hacked, but what ended up happening in the end? It was Target. They
Yeah.
got everything screwed up for them. So just think about it. I mean, there's over 60% of attacks that happen, cybercrime and cyber attacks, are against small businesses because they are a gateway into a lot of times an enterprise and many of them.
Yeah. Well, and they're also typically, a small business, even if they're not connected to a larger business, small businesses just don't have the same security practices or, the same understanding of things that, maybe a larger enterprise with an entire security team does.
Yeah, that's definitely another thing. And then, like we talked about in the beginning of the show, majority of small businesses out there have a mentality, it's not going to happen to me,
Yeah.
or hey, come talk to me if this happens to my competitor or somebody in my space.
Yeah.
By then, it's too late.
Yeah,
You,
definitely too late.
you definitely don't want to wait. You have to do something about it.
So what So obviously there's a whole host of software and companies that are willing to help, in MSPs in the security journey. You don't necessarily have to endorse anyone, but are there some that you find that work really well, that you recommend, or are there some that you just wouldn't recommend to anyone?
Uh, so there are a lot of tools that work very well.
Hmm.
If you're trying to do multi-factor authentication, you can use Duo, and that works very well with a lot of our tools in the industry or other tools that are coming up.
Hmm.
And here's our presidential alert. There we
Yeah,
go.
I just got it here too. So
Sorry.
it didn't make any noise though.
Yeah. It just vibrated a little bit, but hey,
Yeah,
the test worked.
yeah.
All right, so back on track to the different tools. I mean, Duo being one of them, and the multi-factor authentication. I mean, that's to me that's the first line of defense because you
Okay.
have to perimeter protection is the number one line, kind of the number one, almost on top there with the human element and the employee
Hmm.
awareness training. Those are the two things that we really have to drive forward nowadays for our clients, for ourselves, just making sure that all that is secure. And then there are different tools that you can use for employee awareness training. I mean, there's a variety of tools on there from Secure Now to Know Before to Sophos to WebRoot. Pretty much
Hmm.
anybody right now offers some kind of cyber awareness training. And it's just whatever fits into your clients, whatever fits into your client base. If the client wants nice and shiny things and those are the portals they're going to go to, you pick one tool. If they don't
Yeah.
really care about how it looks, you pick a different tool. But there's different things that you can look at. And then
Okay.
for me, a couple other things that I use, as I said before, there's a system: protect, detect, and respond. That's
Hmm.
those are the principles of security, and it's a system that you have to have in place for security to work together. But the most important out of those three, it's actually detection, because you want to be able, you want to know if somebody gets through your defenses.
Yeah.
So for that, I personally, and that's what I work with my MSP clients on and my clients on as well, is I use Event Tracker because they have a great partner program, and it's a really good fit for smaller businesses, especially the
Hmm.
space that we're in. Because if you look at some other partners out there, some other big players, okay, it's going to cost you $1,000, $2,000 a month just to get the
Yeah.
sensor in there. You got the sensor in the network versus with Event Tracker, you get billed per device. So
Okay.
you pay for a couple of firewalls, a couple of servers, and then workstations, and then right there and then it becomes something that a small business and the SMB market can actually
Hmm.
afford because then you're running $500, $400, depending
Yeah.
depending on the size of the business. I mean, I can tell you, I have a client that they're probably about 8 users, and just because I offer that solution, they're able to take advantage of the next generation security services with just having 8 people.
Okay.
So that's where it really is. But if you have to go with the bigger player out there, somebody is going to charge you a thousand, $1,200 right out the gate every month. They would
Hmm.
never go for that. So also finding the solution that fits your client. So there's
Okay.
different ways and the solution that fits your market. For my clients, what I do is for the security risk assessment, the big thing is to audit. You also take a layered approach to that. So
Hmm.
you audit their external, you audit their internal, you audit their people, you audit some of the processes that they have.
Okay.
And then at that time, you actually bring in compliance. There's different compliance frameworks for financial, there's different for HIPAA, there's different for banks.
Hmm.
Some of them don't have anything and they're like, hey, we just want to get started. And you pick a very basic security framework because you don't want to jump in there. Even if it's a financial company, they have to follow a set of regulations for, let's say, SEC. There
Hmm.
might be a bigger framework that they can go to, but is it really something that's going to work for a company that's 10 people and they've never had anything with security? No, you actually have to build a maturing model for that. So
Yeah.
then you do the assessment, you start out somewhere, and then you build a roadmap on how they get there, what's their end
Okay.
goal, and you work with that over a year or two, depending on a lot of times it depends on the budget that they want, how much they
Yeah.
want to invest in, and also change. Change is the big thing because once you
Hmm.
start bringing in security, it's change.
Yeah.
Security complicates things and make things sometimes it makes it a little harder to work, but there's different trade-offs that you have to look at. Um, One of the things that was actually very interesting, I read an article about when Facebook got breached last week. So Facebook had a
Hmm.
big data
Yep.
breach. And then, okay, so what happened? People use Facebook for single sign-on to different apps,
Hmm.
and when their accounts were breached, those apps could be accessed. So that actually brings up the big thing is like, okay, we do all those security measures, but then we want to simplify it and we implement single sign-on. It's doing the research on the single sign-on before you do it. So
Yeah.
there's like I personally do not have a single other app that uses Facebook to authenticate
Yeah.
because it's just something that I don't really want to do, you know. But then if you do something that has, if you're using other clients like Box or other companies that integrate very well with Azure AD or Office
Hmm.
365, then
Yeah.
you can go ahead and start implementing those because Microsoft is going to put a lot more work into the security of their product and how the single sign-on is working than
Hmm.
I think Facebook will.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times Facebook apps, you can connect to, I don't know, one of them is rev.com or some other different places, Instagram. So
Yeah.
people don't care as much about that, but when it comes to business, you definitely should do your research on the single sign-on solution that you'll pick before you do anything with it.
Okay. Now, kind of the other area is a lot of MSPs want to, really focus on their security offerings, but maybe they don't know where to start. They're not an SSP. Maybe they want to get to that. And then there's kind of the flip side where if they're not offering security services, someone like AT&T, might come in and offer to the customer and then end up, kind of stealing them away. So, if you're and it can feel a little bit overwhelming, I'm sure, for some of the, the sole proprietors and the smaller MSPs out there that want to offer services, don't know where to start. What's your advice there? If how do you make sure that you're providing your customers with security, that someone else isn't going to come along and poach them, and that you feel like you know what you're talking about and have enough training to do it? It just seems overwhelming to me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. For smaller MSPs, definitely find a partner. Find someone that you can partner with. There are master MSSPs out there. There are
Okay.
MSSPs. There may not necessarily be master MSSPs, but they work with other companies. They send leads to each other. They work together, and that's then both of your businesses grow because a lot of
Yeah.
times with a smaller MSP, it might be a cash flow issue where they can't bring that a lot of the services in. It might be the skills issue. It
Yeah.
might be do somewhat and some of the smaller MSPs, to be honest with you, that I've talked to, don't really want to do it. They want to have a partner. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is what I do. I do the the regular MSP stuff. I have a partner that I can rely on and that I can work with to come in and help with security, and
Hmm.
that's what they do. That's where they go after. But then
Okay.
for some bigger MSPs, what I recommend, and that's something that we've tried in the past as well, is building a roadmap on how to get there. So actually doing an assessment, doing the skills assessment, and then trying to
Hmm.
figure out, okay, what services do you want to offer? What are the timelines? Have you been thinking about that for a while? And then building out a roadmap. Okay, those are the skills that we need to acquire. Those are the tools that we need to work on. Those are some of the things that we need to test. And then let's put it into a few clients and see what happens. Or even
Okay.
before we bring the skill sets in, find a partner that you can work with that may use similar tools that work in the SMB space, that are tested in the SMB space, and be like, hey, let's do a proof of concept before we go
Hmm.
ahead and start implementing all that, and we
Yeah.
bring it in house. Why don't we take two or three clients, deploy deploy everything on there, work with
Hmm.
the partner, get them secure, and then if it works and it's something that you're interested in doing, passionate about doing, and want to bring on resources to do, then do it. Other than that, if the relationship works out great with a security partner, then just go with that, and then you don't have to worry about it. So then it's a win-win for both companies.
Okay. Yeah. Very good advice. Because like I said, sometimes it can definitely feel overwhelming if you want to offer it yourself and you don't know where to start. So, thinking about from a technology perspective and security focused, are there any technologies in the security area that are you're really excited about? Whether it's like something that's brand new or something that you see on the horizon that's being talked about a lot.
So there are a lot of different services that come up, but looking at different, even Microsoft doing some improvements. There are
Hmm.
improvements that Microsoft is doing to all their platforms. Let's say for Office 365, I'm actually doing a very nice proof of concept right now. I built a whole solution around a 100% cloud-based
Hmm.
business that's going to
Okay.
use Office 365, and it's going to use what Microsoft offers, the Enterprise Mobility Suite, which
Hmm.
comes in a package of what's called Microsoft 365. And then
Okay.
working with that together from onboarding to secure, where we can automate a lot of stuff. Someone can bring in a device. It could be a BYOD scenario. It could be a
Hmm.
new device that they deploy that's company owned that goes through and automatically does everything, encrypts the device. It puts all the security services on it, and just working on that. So finding different solutions out there that work
Hmm.
and marrying them together. I mean, Microsoft definitely has a lot of big nuances when it comes to that, and they constantly try to work on that because I mean that's where the security is going.
Yeah.
So that'll be one of them. And plus, daily just reading about different things. There's always something new that's
Yep.
trying to come out. There's always a new partner, but doing that and doing your research, that's something that they definitely should be looking at.
What are you most worried about? Kind of the flip side of that.
Uh, the
What
most
what
worried
what
about,
what keeps you up at night?
what keeps me up at night, I mean, the security of my clients. The one
Well,
thing
yeah,
is, I mean, you can be a best security company in the world, nothing is bulletproof.
yeah,
If somebody really wants to get in and they put enough resources on it, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't
mhm,
matter what you do, they will get in. And
yeah,
that's the scary thing about there. Um, but then other things out there is like AT&T poaching clients. I mean,
well, yeah,
that's definitely one of the things. I mean, those are the things that worry us. And then just staying on top of the technology, staying on top of the always learning, always advancing in what you're doing. Those are the things that sometimes worry me. But sales and marketing keeps me up at night at times. I'm not gonna lie about that. I mean, I keep the mindset. I have the mindset going all day, and then I
yeah,
can't go to sleep because I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do for my lead gen tomorrow.
yeah. No, no, I definitely I definitely understand that. So, understanding that, you've gotten started on your own. What advice do you have for someone else that's just looking to get started? Maybe, maybe they're working for an MSP now, or maybe they're working, at a corporate customer, and and they're like, you know what, I can do this on my own. I know what I'm doing. I can go out there and I can help these businesses in my hometown or wherever it is. Um, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Uh, the number one thing for me, because if you want to do it, you already know tech. You already know what
Mhm.
you want to do. You already know how you want to do it. Sales and marketing. Learn sales and marketing. Read a couple books. Sign up for a program. Maybe get a coach. Because I mean, coaching definitely does help a lot when it comes to that.
Mhm.
Become a part of an accountability group that you can talk to, that you can work with.
Okay.
So you staying accountable to that and start building the sales and marketing mindset. Because I'll tell you, it's not going to be easy in the beginning. And make sure that you don't get discouraged. I mean, there are times, I'm not gonna lie, I got discouraged a couple times, and then
Hmm.
that really ruins the momentum that I might have built up. It really damages my mindset. But I
Yeah.
you just can't do that. There are gonna be times that you're gonna feel like, hey, I got this deal, this is going great. You go through everything, and then at the end, it's like, you know what? No, we decided to do something else, or no, we decided we're not gonna do that. And at
Yeah.
times, that's gonna depress you a little bit. I'm not gonna
Yep.
lie,
Hmm.
especially when trying to get started, especially when the cash flow is not there, and you're trying to build that portion up. So just don't get discouraged. If that's something that you really want to do, the couple things I'm gonna say is make sure you have some savings. Make sure you save some money so you can actually live day to
Definitely.
day. Uh, at times, you're gonna have to do things that you don't necessarily maybe want to do as a business or long term do as a business, but in the beginning, you almost have to take whatever comes, and you have to do some things that may be outside of your comfort zone or outside of what you actually want to do. And
Yeah.
then the comfort zone. If you want something, that's something that actually Chris Weiser taught me, and I'm gonna bring him up in here. If you want some, that he told me that when we actually started working together was
Hmm.
if you want something you've never had, you're gonna have to do something you've never done, and you're gonna have to
Good
go out of your
advice.
comfort zone. You're gonna have to go and think outside the box.
Yeah.
You're gonna be uncomfortable almost every single day when you're doing lead generation. You're gonna have to go and speak in front of people. You're gonna have to give presentations in front of
Hmm.
bigger groups, and those may be things that you've not done in the past. So just gear up for that, get the mindset going, and just execute.
Okay, great. So with all of that awesome discussion, it is now time for our rapid fire round. So this is fun. It's just it's 6 questions. It's basically a yes, no, either or. Don't put a ton of thought into it. Just whatever comes to your mind.
All right, perfect.
Are
Let's
you
do it.
ready?
I'm
Okay.
ready.
First up, Apple or Android?
Apple,
Okay. Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Windows now.
Okay. Amazon or Azure or something else?
Amazon,
Okay. Comes to backups, local backups, backup to the cloud, or both.
both.
Okay. Should you always virtualize?
Yes.
Okay. And then putting your MSP hat on, which is worse, printer support or vendor cold calls?
Printer support.
Okay. Yeah, no,
It's
that's
probably
a,
the biggest nightmare ever is printer
yeah,
support,
yeah,
especially if it's a CEO that's trying to print a presentation and
yep,
their printer breaks and they're just ready to fire you.
yeah. Why there was, I don't know, a story several months ago about, there was a vulnerability in some of the all-in-one printers,
Yeah,
right? If they're connected to the fax line, that's an attack vector, right? The
yeah,
hackers can call the fax number, overload the buffer, do whatever they do, and now they have an in to attack. So like you said, security is always these, and that reminds me of printer support. So
yeah. I actually wrote an article about that for a printer supply magazine that's in Europe.
oh,
I
okay.
wrote an article on printer security, and that's what I actually talked about. And that vulnerability was one of the things, and how you actually, that's for a lot of MSPs out there, because I know a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
The, logically separate the printer from the rest of the network.
Yes.
All the printers that separate, because just because of that, if somebody's able to get in, okay, they'll kill some of your printers,
Yeah.
but they're not going to be able to get to your data. So just protect that and kill internet access. Printers don't need internet access. There's nothing on them that needs it, so kill it off.
But I want to email my document to my printer. So,
Yeah, I know that happens too.
all right. So, with that being said, wrapping things up, any other words of wisdom or advice that you wanna put out there before we go?
Um, execute, execute, execute. That's the one thing I live by, and get in the right mindset. And plus, is this coming out in October?
Yes.
Okay, it is October. It is a National Cybersecurity Month. Go
Yes.
out there and educate your clients. I do it every single day. Go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook. That's the one thing of stepping out of your comfort zone. Don't just put up a post. Record a video every day. If it's a briefing of something that happened,
Mhm.
or you can go on the Department of Homeland Security has a whole site, there's this ton of documents that talk about the different teams that they do and the different things that
Mhm.
they educate on. Use that. I use those materials to come up with my videos and execute that and put up a video every single day.
Oh,
That's
cool.
that's a lot. That's a big way of getting exposure. So then that way, different things may result from it. I mean, I can tell you, I've been doing the videos. Um, it's just beginning of the month.
Hmm.
I already got about 5 leads just of my LinkedIn videos that I'm
Oh,
scheduling meetings with. So do that
cool.
and execute.
Yeah, there's like you said, that always execute that lead gen. However you need to do it. Be creative, and hopefully it'll pay off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely what
Great.
you want. That's definitely what you got to look forward to.
Yeah. Bart, thank you so much. It's been very informative. Looking forward to, talking to you again at some other point. And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was
well,
definitely great. I like the off the cuff stuff, because I don't
yeah.
like,
So,
I actually don't like, I when it's I think it's easier to keep a conversation going than having an
mhm.
agenda for a podcast or a show, or things like that. I
Yeah.
think it's better. I like it. It was a great experience. I hope we can definitely do it again.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, and
Awesome.
have a great week.
All right, thanks, you too, Doug. Take care.